We got a nice roadmap. We got a couple questions that came through. One that I'm excited to answer. Some good context I can add for people.
But I do have a kind of a question, and I don't know if this is one that's easy to answer, but as you pitch messages to audiences, how can you differentiate between I'm not executing my program well and my message is faulted? And I can put it into writing. We can kind of come to that later if timing.
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. Happy to answer it. Yeah. I'm taking note of it just so we don't miss it. Messaging, what's the root of the messaging?
Yeah, at some point you say, I think I'm doing the process right. The mechanics I think I got, but it's not working. Mm-hmm. Is it the message or did I get the mechanics wrong? That's always the question
that's a good question.
Like I'm wondering around.
Cool. Thanks, David. Let me text G. He's got a non B2B question, but I think there's some good as we start looking into B2C. Like, to be honest, a lot of the things that I've learned and that I execute today, I started by doing it, trying to sell stuff on Instagram and Shopify and Amazon. And so he's got a question. I think the interesting thing, and there's been something floating around LinkedIn, I'll actually get it started while we're waiting for him, is about the advice on LinkedIn and the quality of it and how to decide those things. So first, my position on it is that it's up to the reader to first understand and characterize whether the person that's giving the advice is worth listening to. The next step is to understand if the advice is relevant to them and how. And so there's not a lot of direct stuff that you can pull out and directly apply. There is, however, a lot of good nuggets that you can figure out how to spin and use in your situation. And so that's just something that I kind of wanted to get out there for everyone. I think it's an interesting topic. Hey, Ted, let me text Gaetano right now. Jumping back and forth. He just wants everyone to be here. He wants the whole audience before he jumps on. Cool. So while we wait for him, I'll cover the messaging one, David, right now, and then he'll hopefully be there by the time we return. So on the messaging post, the question is, I'm running some type of campaign. The question is it the campaign that's not working or is it the messaging? Yeah. And so the way that I would figure this out if I were you, and the way that I try to when I work in-house, is that I validate the messaging in person with people before I run it in ads. And so therefore I know that the messaging works. I eliminate that variable. You can also start to dig when you have someone in person and dig deeper into the question and ask why, especially when you're in a non-sales situation and you can learn. And so I think that would be my recommendation. If you get to a point, I've had it with companies where I'm like, look, we're doing this. It feels like it should be working, but it's not resonating. Do we have the wrong audience? Do we have the wrong messaging? Is it the platform? There's a lot of variables when you get into ads. And so if you get to a place where that is, I really recommend taking a step back and taking it in person or on the phone or something like that. Sorry, you're on mute. Let me get you out. Let me get you out. Let me see if I know how to do this. Yeah, I can do it.
Success.
Yeah, great. Okay.
Thank you. So I absolutely agree. Talk to people, talk to prospects, customers, try and figure out it. I guess where it gets interesting is when the CEO and or other senior management don't want to change the message. Mm-hmm. Does one become, do you go rogue? That seems like it's going to take you down a different dangerous path.
Yeah. I mean, there's no black and white on that one. I would go and ask and then bring data back. I've always found that if you're going to make a case to an executive and if it's subjective or opinion based, it's never going to work. So I did one where I sent a survey to 650 people and I weaved in a question or two that I really wanted to prove inside of a 14 question survey. And then I had that data and I said, okay, 67% of our customers feel this way. Maybe we should go in that direction. So it's a recommendation
Okay.
as well. You don't need to do it at that scale either. Okay,
Thank you.
cool. So let's see here. I'm just going to do some housekeeping. Cool. So it appears that I will be winging it for the beginning of the episode, which is cool. Happy to do it kind of on the fly. So we'll see anything. Oh, he's here. What? Where you at, man? There he is. Let me get you in here. That's funny. He's here. Make him the host. We can dive right in. I got a great place to start. A little lighthearted. What's up, G?
Hey, man. How's it going?
It's going great. Good to see you on camera again. Yesterday or last week it was audio only. Good to see you back. Love the background. Everything's
Back
good.
in action, brother.
Yeah. So we had one question that came through on messaging that I knocked down while you were getting in here, and I got a cool place to start. I know you had one topic. We got a couple questions. We got a nice roadmap. And so where I wanted to start, which I'm continue to feel more and more passionate about it as my life goes on, which is the idea that if you have things in your life that are not adding to your life, then subtract them. And that, so I had a conversation with someone today that was in a job, wasn't feeling herself for months, left the job, feels amazing again the next day. And so you could do that iteration on almost anything in life. Like, we're talking professional here, but you could see how that can play in a lot of different personal areas as well. And so, yeah, just want to kind of set the tone in a easy way and let you riff on that for a minute.
Yeah, that's a good one, man. So I could kind of speak to that. I could speak to that in so many ways, but lesson for everybody. I was at Pipedrive, which is a sales CRM company, software, SaaS business. And I was about to hit a major milestone in my vesting for my stocks in the company. And the way it works is, you get more stock in the company as time goes on. They usually do this in a time lapse period. So like every year that goes by, you get 25%. And then like, if you're at the company for like 4 years, then 100% is vested. So I was about to hit a major milestone moment. And what I actually realized was I was like 2 months away from it. And I was like, you know what? Like this ain't worth it. I'm so unhappy here. I was dealing with a toxic manager. And I just said, I don't even care about this. So I just left. And it was absolutely the right choice for my mental well-being, for my just my sanity. And, I didn't even feel bad about it after, because some of my colleagues were like, oh, all the VCs are realizing that Pipedrive is growing like a weed, and they're offering us like big money to buy our stock back early because they want to keep as much of it as possible. And I just, I said, you know what, take that 10K or whatever you're going to make. It's just not worth my long-term happiness. So that's one thing I could share as an example. The other is just last week, I took a week off from work, which I haven't done in a really long time. And it's been incredibly illuminating. I've been biking, I've been exercising, I've been reading, I've been listening to podcasts, I've been playing guitar. I took a week for just pure like self-personal development time, G time, and man, that was so important. I can't express it enough. Like if you've had like ideas in the back of your mind, like maybe starting a podcast or getting a personal project off the ground, something, whatever you've been ignoring because work keeps getting in the way, man, it's powerful if you just take that time to just go do it. And I feel so much better now. So I'll pause there, Chris.
Yeah.
But that's how it goes for me.
Love it, man. And then in the reverse, if you have something you like and you're not doing enough of it, figure out ways to hack it so that you can do more because you like it, if you want to, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Chris, what do you like to do, man? We never talk about this. What do you like to do outside of talking about metrics and revenue?
I am super passionate about marketing, man. And aside from that, I love to exercise. It's basically part of my routine. I'm a very routine oriented person. I think it keeps me in a good spot. So I'm up at the same time every day. I'm giving some people some personal stuff, but like up at the same time every day, workout every morning, including Saturday and Sunday, because I just think it makes me feel better the rest of the day. And I think that's worth the investment of my time there. And, I don't get too passionate about traveling. I like to do it every once in a while, but I would say, being outside, but I love to do marketing. I love to innovate. And so innovation in a lot of different ways. Marketing tends to be the way that I do it right now. But I really like it.
That's
It's
awesome.
just the way, you know what I mean? Like I could try and make up some other things that I do. But I love it. Like, it doesn't feel like work. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally feel you on that one. Just a quick question before we move on. What time do you usually wake up in the morning?
Somewhere between 5:30 and 5:45.
Okay. What time you go to bed usually?
Probably somewhere between 10:30 and 11:30.
Oh,
I get at least 6.
Okay. So you're an early sleeper. Okay.
Yeah.
For those who may or may not know, I'm quite the opposite. I'm quite the opposite. So I'm actually the exact opposite. When Chris is waking up in the morning is usually when I'm going to bed.
Wow.
My average bedtime is like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. And I wake up around 11 a.m. and I get into the groove of my day at midday, 12. So
that's wild. I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's so wild. No one understands it. But what I've learned to accept is that like my circadian rhythm is just different than everyone else's. But I also do have insomnia problems. I've spoken about that recently. I'm planning to do some writing about it. I've been taking melatonin supplements, which have definitely helped, and a few other things as well. Some natural remedies, if you know what I mean.
Nice.
Yeah. So.
Nice. Cool. So let's get into the B2B game, the core part of this agenda. We had one question that I came in that I put in the agenda, but I also have an interesting thing that I continue to see over and over that I think is fascinating. I first recognized it in 2015 is when we started running Facebook ads, we got more inbound inquiries with organic search, last touch attribution. And so even if you are like, there are companies out there that are running get a demo ads and seeing more organic conversions coming through Facebook and not connecting the dots. So Facebook has a view through conversion metric, and complex B2B, it gets fluffy because the person that saw the ad might not be the person that converts. They might not do it within the attribution window. They might do it on a different device, and on their work computer, they're not logged into Facebook. There are so many different ways. This applies on LinkedIn too. But it continues to happen over and over at companies. Just the view of the ad will drive more volume if you spend appropriately. So I just kind of wanted, I'm sure that you have other examples outside of paid social where execution in one channel drives an outcome in a different channel, and a lot of people are not connecting the dots between the two.
Yeah, brother. I mean, it comes down to two things. One, it works on me. So if it works on me, then I know it works, right? So here's the deal. I see maybe, and it doesn't work if you're doing display. I think display is no,
doesn't happen.
Work with display. It can absolutely work with like YouTube pre-roll. Now, I'm just not the type that's going to click an ad. I just don't want to do that. But what am I going to do if something really intrigues me? I'm just going to go right to the browser, type their homepage right in, and check it out.
By the way, that's why if you measure YouTube like you measure Google on direct response click-through conversions, it will look like the channel is underperforming. It is not it's not like an AdWords channel with intent.
That's right. That's right. So one way around that is to actually annotate when you started running the ad campaigns for YouTube pre-roll or whatever it is. Then over time, measure your branded search volume and clicks, specifically clicks. And you can do this really easily in Google Search Console. It's the best place to go.
We're going to get deep into the details right now. I got a good one for you. Keep going.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So go to your Google Search Console. You can go back now Google Search Console actually allows you to go back 12 months. They never used to do that, which is very useful. But you can filter by any query containing your brand. And not only will you see the exact searches for like your brand, like just the brand name, but you'll also see searches for like your brand plus product, which is awesome to see, or your brand plus pricing.
Pricing, yeah.
Your brand plus fill in the blank, right? So when you see that conglomeration of branded queries increasing and it correlates to the time that you started ramping up your brand ads or whatever it is you're doing for your ad campaigns, then that's a positive sign. And the second point is, Chris, we always talk about this, but not everything can be measured in the way that a CFO wants.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm going through this right now. I'm gonna pick your brain on it live.
It's tough, man. It's tough. I'll stop there. I could keep going, but I'll stop.
Yeah. So on the branded search query in Search Console, so I'm working with a company right now. And so basically their branded queries were at X in January. We started working together in April. There was a pretty decent decline from January to March before we started working together. And now since that point, it's been flat. We've adjusted the media mix. We're spending pretty considerably across several social channels and AdWords, and we did some YouTube. Branded search is flat. In Search Console, you only see volume, right? And so that's the one thing that I wanted to dive a little bit deeper. You see search volume of impressions and clicks, but anything after that, Google will take the SSL walk, and you won't be able to see conversions or any type of quality metric of the traffic. And so when we try and look deeper into this situation, I'm obviously making assumptions or guesses as to what could be happening at this point. So let's pretend that company was running very poorly targeted Facebook and LinkedIn ads before they started working with us at the same spend. Could it perhaps be that there was actually more volume driven by irrelevant queries because the ads were poorly targeted and someone wanted to figure it out versus this? I don't know, but it's a hypothesis.
Yeah, I think you're onto it, man. Because actually what could also be happening is that the quality of the ads just sucked. And, if your ads suck, you actually annoy more people. And then that negative stigma is associated with your brand. Like, oh, these annoying, shitty ads. I don't care about this company anymore. So even if someone like you comes in later and tries to repair the damage, it's like, how many heart attacks can you suffer before you do a quadruple bypass, right? Like that's basically the way I'd characterize it.
Yeah. I think the take home for me as I looked at this account is that volume is a leading indicator, but it does not tell the entire story. With anything in marketing, volume is an indicator of something. Unless it's revenue or something like that. But if we look at things like branded search query, it is so far away from revenue metrics. So what they're having, flat branded search query, demo requests doubled over a 3-month period on a 90-day sales cycle, and in the ICP type of demo requests. And so when you have those two competing metrics, which one are you going to trust?
Yeah. I mean, you want to look at a specific set of branded queries, I think. Like just the brand name, like you said, is way too far away.
Could be investors, could be
totally
potential employees, could be internal employees, could be people trying to log into the SaaS tool that are searching through Google as a pass-through.
Exactly. And that's actually what most of it is. Most people are like,
that's what I do for almost every, unless I had saved in the browser, I'm just going to go to Google and I'm going to go.
Yeah, that's it. Now, some people search like Nextiva login. Some people do that, but some people just search Nextiva.
Yeah.
And then they just go to the login from the homepage, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's also why the homepage is also often one of the worst testing grounds. Like everyone's like, yeah, let's test our homepage. Like it's really shitty, but especially if you have a huge customer base.
With a SaaS with a login tool, because a lot of it is just coming right through into the login.
Easily 80% of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I mean, you can block like your settings on that if you want to do a test. Like if you're using like an A/B testing tool, you can actually just filter out, if this person has been to the site in the last 30 days, I only want to test this against brand new traffic. So you can do that. But generally speaking, the homepage is not a good place. But back to the original point was, what branded queries should you look at? And it's going to be things like your brand free trial. Like you should track that. Your brand plus demo. There are people out there searching. Like if they're ready, like your brand pricing, your brand free trial, your brand demo.
Buying intent. I really like that.
Yeah, buying intent. Even like your brand with like a very specific feature or integration. Now integration is kind of a trap. Like that could go both ways, but like your brand plus like feature for specific ICP. Like if somebody searches Nextiva cloud phone system for call center. That's pretty juicy, right? That's pretty damn juicy. Now, if someone just searches Nextiva or a Nextiva cloud phone system, like, yeah, that's good, but it's not as good. So just get into your search console. That's the bottom line. Just export a set of all your branded queries. Then get into your Google Ads account and look at your search terms report and filter by anything that contains your brand name and just go through that shit, because you're going to see some unbelievable stuff. It does take a lot of gold mining, but I'm telling you, it's time well spent.
Yeah, I got another one for you on this same topic. So let's say that you're running the YouTube pre-roll ads. Is there a way besides the click on the view to track, like Google owns analytics, YouTube, all these different things? There must be some type of view through attribution or something. I haven't tried it yet, but there must be. I don't know.
Well, typically it's all UTM tagged.
Only on the click though, right? Not on the view.
Yeah, only on the click, not on the view. Yeah, the view, now you're getting into like
Monday.com got me, but I never clicked through on that. I'll dive deeper into it. I'll come back next week on the YouTube view through attribution. It's tough though, because on a view through metric, by the way, I've started to omit retargeting from that component. And so it's the only value that I'm measuring on is cold targeting view through, which has
and that's the right way to do it.
Influence.
Yeah, because if you commingle it, it's, you're gonna have false positives.
Yeah, exactly.
Like your retargeting traffic's going to be on fire, and you're going to say, "Oh shit, our cold display intent is killing." Bullshit. It's everybody that's already seen your pricing, that's already long been familiarized with your company.
Where else are there false positives that people should watch out for?
Ooh. I would say keyword traps. Like, you've got to understand what your keyword traps are. And the best example I can ever give is, like, for Nextiva, imagine a search query for phone plans, just phone plans. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I got a customer that sells financial software B2B, and one of the keywords that I came into was budgeting. Or budgeting process or something like that.
Yeah.
That's going to get personal budgeting, million searches a month.
And bleed.
Yeah. That's a trap.
Hemorrhaging. You'll be hemorrhaging. That's a major trap. Yeah. So you got to watch out for the keyword traps. Like, that's what it comes down to. Like, knowing your industry really, really well. Like, if you're in paid customer acquisition, I would argue that aside from like the tactical chops that you need to have, like, the number one thing you should do is have the deepest possible understanding of your industry and what customers search for. Literally. Like, if you don't know that first, you're done. Like, you're already going to lose in the race. Like, for sure you're done. I don't know how I even got to that point. But what was the original point?
It was on the false positive. So you think the marketing's working, but it's actually not, because of how it's being measured.
Right. So phone plans. Let's talk about phone plans, right? Yeah. Nextiva sells cloud phone systems. Now, phone plans is extremely dangerous because you could even get a lot of conversions from it. Now, here's the interesting thing. You could even put in your ad copy business phone plans for call centers or whatever, and consumers are still going to click it. And they're not going to read. They're just going to
$14 a click, and they're going to convert. So I had we were doing competitor search, and we had several people complete our request a demo form on the competitive search term, looking for support for their product.
Damn.
The competitive product. Like, that's
damn.
Which you just got to watch out for that. And if you're only looking at front end metrics for high volume stuff like that, it could look like it's working.
You bleed.
Yeah.
You bleed. Now here's the fascinating thing. If you are up against behemoth competitors, like giants, like endless money, and I mean endless, like the piggy bank never runs out. We're talking, $1 billion net worth valuation companies, like insane money. They are going to bid on everything. They don't care. And the biggest danger for you as the David going against the Goliath is saying, look, they're doing it. We should do it too. No, they can afford to bleed. They're going to bleed. They have accepted that they will bleed 50% of the traffic that comes for this query because it's a mixed bag.
They're not even tracking ROI.
No, they just want to be number one.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to be number one. So an example in our industry is like, I'm not going to even give them free publicity, but there's a company that bids on residential and business mixed intent terms, and they don't care. Now, I don't know what happens when residential intent leads come in. They probably have a really annoying problem on their hands to weed all that shit out, but good for them. Let them deal with that and let them have the sales process inefficiency, because I don't want it. So that's the danger in like copying competitors and just saying, oh, they're number one in our industry. They're doing this. It must be working. We should do it too. Like, no, don't be a sheep. Don't be a follower. Be a trailblazer, as good old Salesforce wants you to think. So that's what I got on that.
Right on, man. That was awesome. That was a nice little back and forth there. I like it. So we'll change gears here just a little bit. It's kind of relevant, kind of in the same area. So it was actually a question that came in. I'm going to misquote it because I just have the bullet points here. But it's just thinking about website design and approach, and we'll just put it in the context of, let's just say you're a $10 million company, so we don't have $10 billion of budget and we don't have 10 million years to launch it.
So you have a $10 million budget?
No, $10 million company. So you got to get a website up. It's just like maybe high level how you think about that, like.
Okay.
To be honest, like I'll get the conversation started. Like it's not a place where I focus a lot. Like I'll focus on CRO on a website, but when I go into a company, I expect them to have a killer website that's operating. Like performance speed is something that I'll focus on to move into CRO or SEO.
Mm-hmm.
But overall website design, like I expect the companies I work for to have that done before I get in there. So I'll pass that to you.
Yeah. All right. So. Oh, this is a huge topic, dude. Like it's so vague and so vast. Like
that's the beauty of it.
It's insane. All right. So let's just say you are a company that is $10 million, like you said, and you're trying to get your website design into tip-top shape. The thing I would really consider is having every page on your website be as valuable as possible. And here's what I mean by that. A lot of companies at first, they just think volume of pages is what's needed to compete. So what do? They say, oh, we have a blog. We need content. So what do? They just go outsource a ton of low value articles, spin them up, start running ads on them, right? They start creating tons of landing pages. They don't really know what they're doing. They just see all these other companies with all these feature pages and all these product pages and all these integrations pages and all these explainer pages and all this blog content and all this stuff. And they just feel like, we're behind in the race and we need to catch up. And ultimately what happens is they end up with a very bloated site with a lot of low value pages. And they're realizing, crap, now we have all these pages and like the traffic is not correlating with the output of production, and the leads are not correlating with the output of production. So why is that? Because they didn't think through content strategy. They just, kind of threw a bunch of stuff up against the wall, see what was sticking. But, that's one thing to definitely avoid. Like, don't think that like you just need volume in order to scale your traffic and your lead gen from inbound, because that's not the way to do it. I would say the other thing in terms of like design and like website flow is to like put mobile first. A lot of smaller companies don't do that. They just think about desktop only, and then the mobile experience totally sucks. And another trap is like, they'll say, most of our customers don't really buy on mobile, so it's not as important. But even if say the split is 70-30 desktop mobile, that's going to grow over time, and they're probably doing important searches like in their downtime on their mobile device, and they expect to see a good experience there. The final thing I'll say before I pass it back to you, Chris, is like, be unique. Like, don't copy. Like that's all I could really say. Like, don't copy. You know, it was a fascinating thing that one of the Nextiva designers did. They did an analysis of all the competitors in our industry, what their design like palettes and formulas are, but they stripped out the logos and they gave us a quiz, like whose company is this? Which competitor is this? Which competitor is that? The truth is we couldn't really tell. That's the truth. Like, we're like, shit, is this, is this that? Like, they all had, like, 3 of them were like almost exactly the same. Like, blurred out the brand names and the copy and just showed like the pages. And we're like, damn, this really is all the same stuff. Everyone really is copying each other. So then you need to do what Ahrefs did. They went completely like different. Like, they totally came up with their own font style, like, be unique, be standout, use design as a competitive advantage, not something that's like, you know, you're just doing to meet the status quo or copying everyone else.
A couple points I'll add here. I don't have a ton of value, but as a user, I love the simplicity in a main nav. I find some companies stuff everything into a nav. If you're not getting traffic, just put it in the footer. Like, put it in the footer or not in either of those navs. Inside of the main nav, sticky, obviously. And the last thing that I see working well is, especially if you're using paid social to drive traffic, which is going to be 99% or more on mobile. If you're going to do that, then I would really highly encourage you on the top right-hand corner to have a little get a demo button, because that one is working really well.
I love it, man. Real quick, how do you feel about the hamburger navigation? You know what I'm talking about? The hamburger icon?
I do. On mobile, I don't see a lot of other ways to do that.
Desktop, there's people doing it.
Oh, not a fan of the hamburger on the desktop.
Yeah, hated it.
It sounded funny if it was taken out of context.
I dealt with this problem. I dealt with this problem major at Pipedrive, major. And looks like fast forward to today, they finally listened. But
yeah, I have a really weird story, but I swear that there's a point. And so yesterday I took my dog, and outside of the apartment there is a fenced in area for a dog, and I put her in there, and then I'm like looking at my phone, and all of a sudden she's out in the street. And so then I look, and I was like, oh, there's a fenced in area, but there's a huge space between where the fence ends and where the building starts. And it's brand new construction. And it's just a point of, like, when we get back to website design, it's designing that you think is good, but losing sight of the actual use. And so the hamburger on desktop is designing for the sake of design, not designing for usability. I feel like I hope the dots were connected there. I was frightened. I ran after her. I grabbed her, and we got out of there. So everything is all good.
Yeah. You know, one final thing I'll add is, I hate when companies use really small font size, like, you know, 12.
There's a standard for that, right? It's 16.
16. Yeah. But there are some companies that are doing like 12, even 14. But keep in mind, every font looks different at every size point. Yeah. So like 16 in a certain font may look actually much smaller than what's recommended. So keep that in mind as well. Like, get into the UX nerd stuff with like typography and the font sizes, because there's nothing more. And know your audience type too. Like, if you have older people that are the majority of your traffic and customers, they probably going to want larger font, because as you get older, what happens? Your eyesight goes to shit. You know, it's not like you're catering to the B2C TikTok audience where you can maybe get away with it, but keep all that in mind as well.
Cool. So we'll take a pause here. Anyone that has questions, feel free to drop them in. We're going to have probably like 20 minutes. We have one question to go that came in before, and then we'll have time for kind of like open Q&A, which I think will be great. We can get into some detail or some context. If there's something that like you're working on, like I just used, and I didn't use him, but Gaetano and I just talked through something that I'm going through right now on the branded search thing. It was really helpful. So if there's anything that you're working through that you'd like our input, feel free to drop that in. So this question is directed at me, so I'll get it started, but I think you'll have some stuff to add. And so the question came in from Katie. It was, I'm curious why you're not treating the Refine Labs post with a similar copywriting style to your personal page. And then there was a lot more detail, but that's in essence the thing, and thinking if we use my style that it would probably perform better. And so this is going to be a long-winded answer, but I do think that it's important to understand how I think through all this stuff. And so when I start doing new executions, I think about it as if when I am going to another company, how I'm going to implement it. And so I know that I'm not going to be there, and they might not have someone that has a copywriting style like mine. So I need to figure out how we can package it in a way that can be replicated. And the way that this started was in like maybe July of last year. It was the first LinkedIn post that I had that was like, woof, like it had a lot of traction. And at that moment, the light bulb went off, and I thought to myself, I actually called the only employee that I had at that point, and I said, in 3 months or less, executives are going to pay us $10,000 a month to show them how to do what I just did. And 3 months later, that's what happened. And we had people that were paying us that amount of money to show them that stuff. Eventually, we evolved from there. And then the next thing that I did was I was looking at the trade shows, and every time I was like telling a customer, I was like, you shouldn't do the trade shows. I think they're a waste of money, but they wouldn't move away. And so I came back to myself and I was like, I need to show them what good looks like. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to do field marketing events that were small and micro, that were driven on building content, not driving leads, that were way less expensive, could happen in more high volume, and you get the benefit of the content amplification, not trying to sell to the people that are at the event. And so I did 2 of those. I got to learn how to do them, how much they cost, what was the impact, how you distribute the content, the impact of having Justin Welsh promote the event, and how much awareness that brought to me and my company. Just the fact that he was promoting it in the video raised the brand a lot. And so to get back to the LinkedIn thing, when I built this, the idea was, how are we going to be able to do this if we go to 7 companies and try and show them how? And so that's how it's designed. We have a lot of content being pulled in from other people, basically like I'm doing podcasts, I'm doing stuff like this, and we're going to use Gaetano's content on the company page. Sometimes we mix some of mine in, or Justin Welsh or Amy Volas or anyone else who's on the thing, and we promote their content on that platform or on that page. And then we can repurpose or paraphrase what they said as the copy, which for any company should be replicatable. For any company, an SME, subject matter expert, should be able to go either interview or record content, and then somebody else should be able to paraphrase and repackage that content on a company page that is not an executive and not an expert in the topic. And so that's why I do it that way. And hopefully we can get it to the goal. Just so everyone knows, the goal was to get this to a place where the company profile on Refine Labs has 10,000 followers and is getting 200 to 1,000 engagement on every post from ICP. And when you get there, then people start to take notice. Right now we're at 2,500. The engagement's relatively slow and inconsistent. I do have confidence, and I'm also on kind of like I'm on a mission to show that a company page can work and figure out how to do it. So it's kind of an experiment right now. But that's like a really deep dive into how I think about it.
I think that's super cool, man. And I think it kind of reinforces something that I had a hard realization of this week. And it actually is a reflection of my post from today, which is that I forgot what it feels like to build something from scratch. Like, I've had websites that, have gotten traffic, and I've grown it to a lot more traffic. And my Instagram has had a lot of followers for a long time. And my own site has had a lot of followers for a long time. And my own LinkedIn presence has been big for a long time. And it's been a while since I decided to build something from scratch. And I forgot how much it sucks when it's a slow turtle pace. I'm high all the time off of everything, after all the engagement, after all the traffic, all the leads. Like, even at Nextiva, things are pumping, man. So when you're used to, being in Candyland, and then all of a sudden you get locked out of the store, it's tough. So what does this all mean? I launched a podcast called the Musicians in Tech Podcast. And it doesn't have much to do with like growth marketing and metrics and the shit that people really want to hear about on LinkedIn, right? But there are a set of people out there that I've spoken to. So I manually one-to-one had over 100 conversations, whether in person or DM, about the idea. Hey, the idea is basically to bridge the gap between the tech industry and the music business, interviewing music executives and learn about how they think about brand marketing for the artists that they have under their label umbrellas, the business of music publishing, music law, how does it relate to tech and marketing and sales and stuff like that. And every single person I spoke to about the idea said, yes, this is awesome. I want to be on your email list. Like, awesome. Can I get your personal email address? And they were like, yes, here it is. I would love to be on the distro. So I sent out the first email this week, and like 10 people unsubscribed, people that I just spoke to about the idea, that said, yes, I love it. I want to support. Yes, this is awesome. I would love to also pick your brain. And also, like, you know, it didn't like get a huge number of clicks either. Like, you know, I sent it to 100 people, you know, it had like a 70% open rate and then like a 20% click-through rate, right? So then that means like, damn, like you told me you liked the idea. You said you loved it. You said you wanted to support. And then you open the email and you don't click. Like, it makes no sense. I just talked to you about it 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So it just made me remember, like, damn, building something from the ground up is really hard. And if you're feeling like I want to build a community, or I want to build a blog, or I want to build my social presence, like myself, Chris, like we all had to start from ground zero, from nothing. Like it didn't take, like Chris didn't just get all this engagement and inbound, you know, inquiries about Refine Labs overnight. Like I'm sure you've been doing this now, Chris, 3, 4, 5 years. Same with me with mine. So it was just a harsh reminder that like, one, it takes like things move at a turtle pace and you just have to be patient. And two, there's just flat out some people that are not going to support you. Not everyone's going to support what your mission is, and, you know, don't take it personal. And that was a tough realization for me this week that I had to remember.
It's really interesting. I went on that rant about how I think about the company page and the events and then the LinkedIn page. And it's really, as I look back on it, when I was the point is, I think that we need to, if you want to continue to persist through the slow turtle pace, you need to have a higher level mission or something. And so my mission was always to prove that a tactic would work better than another one. Which then allows me to have the fuel to be creative and do the events and put $10,000 into an event and not know what the return is going to be, because I believed in the idea. And then I wanted to be able to show someone that. So it's just a point, like, whenever I'm doing any of these things, and I think it shows in my content, and I tell people this directly and they're like, yeah, you're a bullshitter. And I'm like, no, I'm not, which is that I never made a LinkedIn post with the idea of how it's going to make me money. Never once. It is always about how am I going to distribute information so that all of you, it's now 38, it was 43, all of you people continue to show up every week. It's amazing. It makes me feel good. And so it's just another thing to just have if you're motivated by money, that's amazing that you recognize that, and that's great. But I've found, at least for me, and everyone's different, that the innovation component is what drives me.
Dude, I love that, man. I love that. Now, just to close out, there are people out there, and I can sniff it out. I'm sure some of you can too, that their LinkedIn posts are scientifically engineered to go viral. Like they don't do it because it's how they really feel or what they believe, or it's just genuinely speaking on something that they want to speak on. It's, my mission is to get as much engagement as possible, to go hardcore viral, to get thousands of likes and engagements. So I'm going to spend hours constructing this post in a way that is going to make me go viral so that I can heighten my visibility. And that's all they really care about, because they are addicted to the adrenaline rush of social media glory. I'm not going to name any names, but there are people who are really good at doing this, and their sole objective is to heighten their own personal brand and create noise. So I would much rather receive content from someone like Chris, whose motivation is not to make money or get leads, but it's to actually challenge, the status quo, right? Like a long sustained belief in the industry that has now gone stale. and no one wants to challenge that belief, which Chris does a great job of doing. Like, that's the kind of content I appreciate. And it's not content that's designated to go viral or, you know, be clickbait or whatever, but it's really good info. So just something to be aware of when you're out there scrolling through your LinkedIn feeds. Be careful what you like and comment on, because you may be inadvertently fueling someone else's gaming the system style content. So maybe we can close out on that.
Yeah, and just by the way, along the journey, this has happened a couple times where like the engagement only matters if you execute afterwards. And so like I've had conversations with people that get a lot of engagement and say things, and then you actually have the conversation with them and they don't know what they're talking about. So like eventually that any hack eventually gets exposed. So just another thought there. Cool. Anyone want to drop in a couple of questions? I saw Matthew had one on backlinks. You can get that one. That's out of my space. How do you do backlinks for your team's blog?
Yeah. So Matt, I think I've talked about this before, brother, but I'll talk about it again. So really the name of the game when it comes to links is street cred. Street cred, baby. Yeah. So how does it work? I go and I ask as many marketing podcasts as possible. Hey, can I be a guest on your podcast? And pretty much they'll always say yes. And in the write-up of the podcast show notes or the blog that highlights the summary of the podcast will always be a link to Nextiva. And that's a link that I don't have to say, hey, if you give me a link, I'll do something for you. It's just, I've already done you a favor of giving you great podcast content. I'll share it. And then in return, I will get a link from you. So that's the number one way that I go about building backlinks. And it's, you know, it's a double whammy actually, because I get the free social promo. I get the credibility boost, all that fun stuff. So that's the number one way that I build backlinks. Probably the second way that I go about it is just good old fashioned hard work. Like I go and I monitor keyword mentions throughout the web. So whenever, for example, all of our competitors are mentioned and we're not, we go and hit them up. Whenever all of our competitors are linked somewhere and they're included on a roundup and we're not, we go and hit them up. If there's ever a place where a backlink is broken, we go and hit them up and say, hey, I noticed you guys are linking to competitor XYZ in this article, but the page that you're linking to is broken because they've disabled that page on their website and now you're linking to a broken source. We happen to have a resource that is much better quality than what you were linking to previously. And in order to clean up that broken link, would you consider linking to us and not sending external link equity to a broken site? So those are some of the big ways that I do it. But at the end of the day, it's just like asking friends for favors. Like I've done a lot of people favors in the past and I just ask them, hey, can I get a backlink because I need a favor? And like 9 times out of 10, they'll say yes. So it's a long game. You got to be all over it. It's talk about turtle pace. That's a slow turtle pace grind. And it's really hard to get backlinks, but we focus on this pretty much every day and we've been doing it for 3-4 years straight. And the results are showing, but it's a grind, no doubt about it.
Cool. Anyone feel free to drop in your questions. I have one for G. I think we can riff on this for a minute, which is that, so let's say you have to hire a VP of demand gen tomorrow. What do you do? I think it's not tomorrow, but like you have to hire them soon. This is more on the trend difference that I see in my own hiring patterns.
Sure.
How I hire versus how, the $300 million company would hire.
Sure.
And so I think it's an interesting idea. I can get it started if you want. I'm just like,
cool. I mean, here, I'll start off with this point and then I'll let you riff on it, Chris.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you already know this. Every truly great demand marketer is either very happily nestled in to a great situation that they don't want to get out of, or they're so good that they're unhireable, that there's someone like you who runs their own business. That's just the reality. Now, there are a percentage of people out there who have incredible potential to be all-stars. You know, I see like Matthew, like you're someone in that category, right? Like you're grinding hard every day. You're getting better and better each week. You keep showing up to Demand Gen Live. Like, dude, you're going to be successful just because you have the immigrant mentality. You work hard, dude. Like my CEO says it all the time. Like, I'm not the smartest CEO, but I read more, I study more, I spend time with more customers. I work harder. So by working harder, I'm by association going to learn more and then be better over time. So leading off with that, I think is where an interesting point comes along with like big companies with big budgets. What do they go do? They go pay like, talent acquisition companies and headhunters and recruiters to try and go find these people. But the problem is that they don't even really know what to look for. They don't know who's good or who's bad. They just see, oh, Salesforce is on the resume, they must be good, which could be the horrible fit for your company. So it also depends on the stage of growth that your company's in. What channels, like channel to strength fit is huge. So maybe I'll pause here, Chris, but I could really go dig deep on this.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you start getting to higher level roles where it's not just the skill set, it's also the leadership qualities. I think it gets even harder. Like it's like a needle in a haystack at this point. Just as I reflect, I hired 5 demand marketers in Q3, not all at this seniority level. In Q2, let me rephrase that. In Q2, 3 out of the 5, this is exactly how I hired them. I knew in my head that at some point in the next 3 months, I was going to need these people. I knew what they were, what qualities they had. I knew what they were like. And then I was just passively watching. And then all of a sudden in LinkedIn, unfortunately, I was laid off yesterday. It was a great time, really grateful. I see their headline, Demand Gen Marketer, message them, say, hey, I got a Demand Gen role. It'd be perfect. I did that for 3 out of the 5 hires. I did that. All 3 hires I'm very happy with, which is very different than how a lot of companies would do it. Not to say that that's going to be 100% successful. I think a lot of it also has to do with how I vet people. Like not everyone that I did that to ended up working at my company. I was not 3 for 3, but I did hire 3 people that way. So I just think that's a completely different way to look at doing that, which is not using a recruiter or firm that doesn't actually know the details of what's going on, not posting a job and sorting through, which I have done before, and sort through 1,000 resumes, 95% of them or more, which are junk and irrelevant. So yeah, those are some of the things that I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Nextiva, $100 million a year in annual revenue. We don't use services like that. Like whenever I need to hire a really important role, I take matters into my own hands because I know that it's just going to be so much easier. And I'll be honest with you, every single person I've hired on my team has been a home run. And I'm not saying that to brag or, to give myself brownie points, but I vet really tough. And I don't even engage with someone unless I really research them. I see, what have they done? Have they published case studies on their own experiments? Like, do they have side projects? Often enough, people who have like passion projects are the greatest people to work with because they
actually love it.
They love it. They have purpose. These people with agency backgrounds are awesome. I'm trying to hire a designer right now. I just learned that Vice Media laid off like 200 people in June. What do you think I went and did the other day? Went to LinkedIn.
Yep. Creatives out of agencies, good ones. Yeah.
Totally. Right. So you oftentimes like you've just got to take matters into your own hands. And especially because demand gen is so,
hard to judge.
It's tough to judge. Yeah. It's cloudy, man. If you go tell a talent HR recruiter to like, hey, go find me a head of demand gen.
I got a job description from someone in HR and it was just like,
yeah,
it was so far from what I needed. And it was like the standard job description for the job title.
But they don't know. Like,
no, it's not their fault.
It's not their fault.
Just that, like, yeah, it's not their fault. It's just that, like,
fault.
There's so many nuances in the role. The last thing that I'll say is if you're hiring at a VP level, I think a really scary part is that person has now become more of a people manager than an actual understander of the strategy. And so they bring with them the 2011 demand gen play that's the last time they executed it. And now all they've been doing is managing people to do that.
Yeah. So I'll give you my philosophy on that, which I think is a little bit different than most. So here's the difference between me and why I win and why big companies often lose. Big companies do this. Oh, let's go to the logos on the resume. Microsoft, check. Salesforce, check. Right? They must be good. Mm-hmm. Me, I don't want that. What do I want? I want someone who was like me 5 years ago.
Scrappy, worked in a small company, has a breadth of experience and a detailed knowledge, and has actually done it. When you get to the big companies, like I was talking to some person, it was like the director of global demand or something for some big
just saying global
big company, and all they did was decide which content syndication vendors they were going to allocate their $10 million content syndication budget across. That was their job.
My chest just had a palpitation. Let me, it's so tough. Like, the other thing too is like those people, like, I don't want to bash it entirely. Like, let me tell you one scenario where I think it kind of makes sense. Let's say you're publicly traded. If you make a VP of marketing hire that has that cachet, just announcing that you hired someone that's a 20-year veteran from Microsoft, your stock price is going to soar through the roof, right? Like, that's just the nature of the game. You need someone to be a voice on those earning calls. Like, that's real big picture shit.
Yeah.
That's super big. But I do feel that there is maybe a time and place for that. But it's these companies that are already massive. They're on autopilot. Like, they're doing the majority of their expansion through channel marketing, resellers, partners, big enterprise deals. Like,
word of mouth drives a lot of it once you're at a certain size. Yeah.
Integrations, partnerships, like strategic ways to, like, connect the dots between your product and another big product, and then cross sell amongst those two customer bases. Like, that's the way a lot of those big companies are doing it. When you're a Series B, Series C, you need a hungry growth marketer. Like and this is I'll close out on this. The number one trait you should look for, the number one, and this has been true 100% of the time for me. If you find a candidate that has something to prove, like you, Chris, you want to prove that, old school tactics don't work anymore. You're determined to show that social, organic social on LinkedIn for a company page can work. Like, you're going to succeed in that because, like, you're just determined to just flip the game upside down on that, right? Like, you want somebody that came from a company that said this: my last boss wouldn't let me do shit, was controlling, didn't believe in my ideas. I had to fight for mind share. It was just so frustrating because I knew that if I was given some leeway that I could really make something happen. And now I'm hungry to, like, take my playbooks and run with them. That's what you want. That's what you want.
Mm-hmm. Right on. That was great. We have a very fantastic question. It'll probably be the last one. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce this right. I think it's Nuam. Hopefully we have that. And okay. So the question is, what are the key things to include in your marketing board report? Top metrics when you're a sole marketer, doing demand gen stuff, low lead numbers on the website. Sales are being pushed for activity and getting worn out. They're starting to see market value in webinars and podcast blogs, but CEO wants to know numbers, and numbers are not great. What would you put?
I mean, I would just be real about the numbers. Like, I think there's nothing worse than, like, trying to fudge the truth. Like, with data, there's so many ways to, like, leave out shit that, like, are so critical that you only show the shit that's working and create this illusion that, like, things are moving in the right direction. When the truth is that revenue is tanking and pipeline is tanking, but you're showing leading metrics, leading indicators that are, somewhat promising. So don't do that. Chris, I talked about this on the last one, man. I don't even know if I want to, like, really rip it apart again, but it's the same story all the time. It's figure out what key leading indicators you want to report and key lagging indicators, and align with sales on what's important, and just do that. Like, I feel like I can't even break it down again because I've done it so many times.
Yeah. The only thing that
thoughts?
I'll add that I don't think we've really talked about before is understanding how to use the data points if they're low and transform them into the narrative that you need to tell around it. The podcast numbers are low. We're only producing an episode every 3 months. It makes sense that the numbers aren't low. We should be producing one every day. Here's what it could be if we produce one every day for the next 3 months. I'll need $5,000 to get that done, or whatever it is. That's how you take low numbers and you change the narrative to this is what it could be if I'm able to do X, Y, and Z. That's the way that I would position some stuff like that. Is more painting a picture of where we are today and where you think it could be and what you need to get from point A to point B. Yeah.
No, that's so huge. To close out on that, it's the narrative around it all. Like,
it really is.
It's everything. It's everything. Imagine a slide deck with 5 slides on it that, you're going to give your CEO to just give a basic pulse check on performance. Ideally, you're going to have one graphic or one main data point, but then the rest of the slide should be the narrative around what that all means for the business. What are the short-term and long-term implications? A great example of this is like a keyword that you just got a new organic number 1 ranking for a new keyword that's important to the business. But it has very, very low monthly search traffic. Maybe, it gets 10 searches a month, but it's $200 cost per click. So if you're reporting on traffic and you say, traffic right now is kind of stagnant. Mm-hmm. What's that going to say? The CEO is going to think, well, we suck. But if you say, hey, traffic's stagnant, or it's only growing very, very, very slightly, but it's because we're focusing on super high intent. And we're now number 1 for an organic term that costs $200 a click in paid ads. And we're getting that traffic for free. And then you're able to show over time that you're getting web submissions, chats, phone calls from that page, which corresponds back to the keyword. Well, then that means something. So it's all about the narrative and the way you frame it.
Yeah, it's essentially, as I reflect on it, I'm like looking at it, it's essentially all I do on LinkedIn. Whenever I call out a metric, it's the story behind why it's like this and why it's happening and what it means to the buyer and what it should mean to the executives, I think is the value. So, we ran this thing, we got 10,000 leads. If you said that, like that could be the story that's the story that some people are telling. We ran this ebook, we got 10,000 leads, everything was great. And then if another person could tell the exact same story. We ran the ebook, we got 10,000 leads, 3 of them converted to opportunities. 1 of them converted to a customer. We spent $200,000 doing it. Our customer acquisition cost was $200,000. The math doesn't work. Why? Because nobody that was downloading the ebook had buying intent and the content wasn't valuable and nobody read it. And that's just the difference in how you can position the same exact data, just positioned differently.
Has anybody on this call read an ebook lately?
That'd be great. Let's go to gallery mode and let's do thumbs up, thumbs down. Has anyone read an ebook in the past 6 months? We got 1.
I got 1 and 2. I got 2.
So I have to say that you got any more? I did. I read the Salesforce State of Marketing report, so I could rip it apart on LinkedIn. That's the only one.
I think we got out of 40 people on this call, I think a total of maybe 3 or 4 have downloaded and read an ebook. Yeah.
Why don't we break down why? Like it's not that. I think that's the stick. It's not about whether or not a book is good. It's the way that people have consumed information has changed, in my view. Like, why is it happening that way?
I think another follow-up point to this too, and this is a great topic to close out on, Chris, is for the 3 or 4 people on this call that did download an ebook, what happened after that? What did you do? Did you tell somebody about it? Did you share it? Did you talk to a sales rep after that? Did you buy anything? I don't think so. Everyone's shaking their head.
Yeah.
Somebody just did it to research a competitor.
Two comments. Yeah.
Another person said just to skim through it, just to see what it said. Mm-hmm. Right. So I don't even know where this idea came from. I think Chris, you said a long time ago, like, I think you said it today on this call too, is like ebooks at one point were a growth hack. Nobody was doing them really. Like, think about like 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Also, if you look at the landscape of people that are doing ebooks, there are people that are doing ebooks that are selling it at $997 through ClickFunnels. It might work for that. Selling a $100,000 ARR SaaS tool, probably not.
Yeah,
so that's one thing.
Even for the ClickFunnels thing, like, who's going to buy a $997 ebook?
Yeah.
Like, the way I've seen, like, some people doing it is ClickFunnels for a course, which I think is another thing that's going to be plateaued soon. Like, that was a growth hack like 3-4 years ago. Now it's like getting stale. But back to the ebook point, why does it keep happening? Why is every company?
It's really interesting as you reverse engineer.
Yeah.
A lot of things that marketers do are driven by the propaganda from tech vendors. And so the core, it's part of the HubSpot playbook. I don't know if I'm not going to blame HubSpot for this. I don't know where, but like, it's part of the HubSpot playbook, and the download gives you cookies and attribution. It gives you future attribution for someone in 9 years that buys your product. And so I think that is one of the core reasons why it still happens. Yeah. But
let's close
on the
out
flip
on
side,
this point.
Yeah, sorry. I want you to close out on that point.
Yeah.
On the flip side, the ebook thing was created pretty much before social platforms existed. Like, and so when you think about it that way, it was like reading a book on your desktop in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a lot of other ways to consume, and so the same stuff has happened, but how people consume information has changed. Just like in that time period, less people watch TV, more people watch Hulu or come to something like this, which is great. And so, like, there's been a lot of stuff that's changed in how people consume information. And I think companies need to, it's not only about what they're doing, but it's the mindset of why they do it. And so when you look at the ebook, it's very easy to run a survey and put one book together every year and call it a day. It is not as easy to put out a video or a podcast every day on LinkedIn that people like, that people want. And so there's a significant mindset shift that needs to happen in where it's being distributed, how it's being packaged, and how it's being distributed.
This is so awesome. I love that we're breaking this down. I think while you were speaking, something really important came to mind, and I'll bring it back up as you mentioned, the tech vendor propaganda. This is an excellent point to close out on. Attribution,
ABM,
right?
Whatever.
And it gets even deeper. And this is like some like really deep stuff. But I'm going to predict that, and probably like it's probably going to already happening if not yet, but fast forward like 10, 15, 20 years, these companies that are holding vendors hostage with mafia fees, and I'm calling them out, the Forresters of the world, the Gartners of the world, the G2s of the world. How dare you create this quadrant which has
vendors in the top that pay you the most money.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's just call it for what it is. Vendors in the top right who are paying you the most, and analysts who are, like, we can't even get a straight answer from G2 on like why Nextiva is in the bottom right corner. Like, we have the best like service and like satisfaction ratings, but we're not in the upper right for some reason. We can't even get an answer on why. It's like, oh, the analysts read this and do that. And like, so why does it happen though? It happens because in some of the buyers' minds that are out there, and this tends to be the older school buyers, this is not an age thing, this is just reality. Mm-hmm. They see that magic quadrant come out and they say, oh, wow, yeah, they're in the upper leader corner. That company must be the best one to do business with. Now those companies go and say this: if you want to use if you want to license the rights to our Magic Quadrant report, you have to pay us an absurd amount of money. just to use that report. And if you want to, and by the way, here's what all your competitors are doing. They're paying us that ransom, and they're running retargeting to that Magic Quadrant asset, and they're getting so many more leads than you. They're beating you. So they're using all these pressure tactics. If you don't do this, your competitors will get that in order to get that ransom from you. So now what do you have happening? You have everyone paying them this ridiculous ransom fee. You multiply that across every vertical that exists in SaaS, and what do you have? You got Goodfellas. That's what you got.
This has already happened in B2C. So review sites that part of their model is vendors paying them break because over time, consumers understand that it's not real. Way less people use Yelp once restaurants hired agencies to make 700 5-star reviews for them. Way less people believe Glassdoor than they used to, because people go in there that work at the company, the HR people, and type in 600 5-star reviews and give the CEO 99% approval ratings, and he sucks. And so this will be exposed. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. And to David's point, and Damien, like it's been exposed for a while now, but the reason why you're not seeing a sharp decline, you're seeing probably a gradual decline. And I have no data to support this, but it's just my hypothesis. You're not going to see these companies are just going to say, no, like I'm not paying you $200,000 a year just to use this stupid report. It's ridiculous. I'm not doing it anymore. I get that we sell a $40K ACV product, but I'm just not doing it, because the real demand gen, Chris, and we always go back to this point, this is a great one to close out on, is be so good at brand marketing, be so good at demand marketing, be so good at educating your audience and your potential buyers that you don't need that. There's very, very few companies who are that good. Very, very few. Like Ahrefs is the one I always think about. That comes to mind. Like they refuse to even do paid ads. Like that's how confident they are and how good they are at educating the market.
And there are certain MarTech or other categories where I would never go to G2 to buy. I already know whose product I would buy if I needed it.
Right.
And that's the difference, I think. It's the difference between being a vendor in a category or being the vendor that's in everyone's mind in the category. That's called brand.
That is huge. That is huge. That is huge, huge, huge. Because think about this, right? Conversational marketing or chatbots. Everyone already knows that in that upper right quadrant, you're going to see Drift and Intercom right there. Right? So if you are a company that is relying on an asset like that from Gartner or Forrester or whoever to validate you, you're not doing a good enough job with your marketing. That's actually a sign that you need to step up your game. If you need to spend X $100,000 a year for some kind of asset like that in order to validate yourself, you're not doing a good enough job. And I think it's still relevant now to a very small subset of closed-minded buyers who just care about shit like that. But in the future, that's not the way it's going to work.
I know executives that have parties when they get the top rating in Magic Quadrant.
Yeah, it's all bullshit. It can all be gamed. like literally, it can all be gamed. So that's a great one to close out on, Chris. I think that was a pretty epic teardown.
We went in a lot of new directions. This was a good one, man. I liked it.
Yeah. And you know, those analyst companies and stuff, they're not going to like this episode. So yeah, be afraid. Be very afraid.
It is what it is. By the way, we're on the podcast. We're approaching 500 subscribers. Thank you for everyone that listens. We take this, we rip it. It goes on YouTube at 9 a.m. the next morning, so it'll premiere then. And then it also goes and gets archived on the podcast, which we've been watching the metrics. And so as we started publishing more on the podcast, the viewership on YouTube has gone down. Very important insight if you're doing both, to lean into the podcast, because that's where consumers are going. So we'll close out on that. Maybe you got something you want to end on?
I was just going to say, are you using Libsyn as your distribution?
We use Anchor.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we use Anchor. It's free and simple, and
love Anchor.
Yeah, the whole RSS Libsyn thing is just like, I needed something that was a little bit more straightforward. Maybe over time we'll evolve to something, but right now it's working for us.
Yeah, I feel you on that. So maybe I'll close out with this. Aside from the Musicians podcast, I'm starting another podcast called the Underdogs Marketing Podcast. And
it was
it's
supposed to be this one, by the way, but demand.
It was supposed to be this one, but I like how we're doing stated demand gen. It's very focused. The Underdogs marketing podcast is actually the anti-SaaSter. I got really annoyed with seeing the same big names over and over again. Now they're clogging the social media feeds with their stupid extra short posts that are, have these like really snarky punchlines. I hate it. Like, I'm not going to call this person out, but like I saw a post the other day that said like the number one way to measure marketing, sales. And it got like 10 million likes. And then like someone copied them and said the number one way to measure customer success, net revenue retention. And like everyone went nuts. And like, I don't know, those kind of posts piss me off. So I'm tired of seeing like the same names and the same people, and they're paying SaaSter and all these other companies to like be on stage, and they don't really deserve to be there. They're just a big wig at a big logo. So the point of the podcast is to highlight the underdogs. And the tagline for the podcast is the best growth marketers you've never heard of. It's a marketing podcast that doesn't suck. So I am going to be
cool concept. So you're going to bring on people and interview, because there's a lot of people that do not talk on LinkedIn that are very good. I've had conversations with a couple, and they're out there getting work done.
That's right. That's right. So I'm looking for those kinds of people. And to close out, this is where it all comes from. I used to be that guy in the shadows that got
me too.
You too.
Me too.
Yeah, it sucks. I used to be that guy behind the scenes getting no love. Everyone was like, damn, this company's growing like a weed. Who the hell's behind it all? Yeah, no one knew it was me, right? Now, the thing is, I'm not a super ego-driven person, so I don't need to be, getting all that glory all the time. But damn, when someone else is stealing the credit for it, and it's like, oh, wow, this company's growing like a weed, and it's some CMO sitting at the top who's just, not doing shit all day. They're just answering emails and sitting on calls, right? Let's just be real and call it for what it is. I'm looking for that workhorse that's being thrown into the shadows that no one knows about, that's actually doing a tremendous amount of work and adding incredible value to companies who you never hear about. So I'm looking for those ghosts who exist out there that are doing great work, but they just get no love. So that's the point. So
right on. Cool. Little plug. We will be very anxiously awaiting episode 1. Can't wait for that. All right. We have gone officially 17 minutes over, which is good. I enjoyed it. I'm still happy to see 32 people here. Always great to see you. We had a bigger audience than normal, which is amazing. People are talking about it. So any questions, feel free to shoot them to me in LinkedIn DM, email. You know how to find me. We'll get them on the agenda. We'll cover them, and look forward to seeing you all next week.
Love it. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time. Chris, this is a good one, man.
Yeah, man, this was good.
to the next one.
All right. Talk to you soon. Have a good one.
Talk to you guys. Have a good one. Bye.